Pamela. She is the director of Charlotte Health Neurofitness. We have a ton of stuff going on there right now.
Yeah, I mean, I barely had time to escape. I mean, it's so busy. It's great. No. Put the finishing touches on our neurofitness assessment, which I'm super excited to roll out in a couple weeks.
Yeah. Can you give me like a little hint of what's in that?
Okay, so a tiny hint, because a lot of people, if you've ever worked with a personal trainer, or you even just signed up like at a gym for membership, and they kind of take you through some tests, or remember even from PE, like how many push-ups can you do?
Oh no, are you going to ask me to do all those push-ups?
Nope. No, that's the beautiful part. It's nothing like that.
Okay.
It's nothing like PE. It's nothing like your memories of phys ed. It's one to help me understand where your body needs to start. So I look at patterns. I look at functional movement. So not how much can you squat, but can you actually do it the way your body's supposed to do it?
Okay.
So that's one piece of it.
I always heard that when you go down, you should still be able to wiggle your toes, for example.
Yes. I always tell people that you should be able to wiggle your toes in a squat. You shouldn't have pain, right? You shouldn't be leaning forward. There's just all these different things. And that's, you would think that's standard. It's actually not in a lot of personal training assessments. I've learned that over the years. But what makes the neurofitness assessment a little bit different is I'm also kind of looking at your reaction time. Your ability to follow certain directions. We're looking at some of that cognitive capacity. We're looking at how your body moves in conjunction with your brain. So not only are you having to move in certain patterns, but you're having to follow certain cues. So I'm looking at how those two things combine so we can optimize the results for your brain and your body.
Right. So when I do a neurological exam on someone, it's actually very structured. There are different sections. And I do typically want to know kind of how they're doing mentally. Are they awake? Are they alert? Do they know where they are? Is their voice clear? And are they speaking, the right word? Are the right words coming out of their mouths? And that's called a mental status examination. So that would certainly apply in neurofitness when you're trying to coordinate complex moves like maybe boxing.
Yes, exactly. And so I kind of take people through levels. And that's the great thing about this assessment is nobody wants to walk into a fitness center or anywhere and feel like they're going to fail.
Right.
So when I start with somebody, everything kind of starts at this level 1 place. And I want to see if they can perform these basic level 1 tasks. For example, just being able to do a sit to stand, which is a squat. Anytime you get up out of a chair, that's a squat.
Okay.
I mean,
all right.
But if someone can't perform that without pain or properly, I'm not going to ask them to do a deeper overhead squat because I'm setting them up to feel like they're failing. Right. So there's none of that, right? We kind of work from where you are. So there's these levels and these progressions, and it gets a little tougher as you go along. If you're able to do your basics at to stand, well, all right, let's look at your overhead squat now. Let's look at that range of motion. Let's look at what you can do. So everybody can come in and start exactly where they are, feel successful, give me good data about where we need to be physically, and then again we can measure some things mentally. Like we'll call it a level 3 assessment. You're in a plank, so right there that's hard enough. But now you're also having to track a color, and you're having to track a light.
Oh, that sounds fun, actually.
It is kind of fun. I kind of like doing that myself. So you have to track that, and I'm seeing how many times you get it right, and how fast you do it. So your reaction time.
Okay.
And we know that as we move our body, that blood flow, it is not just nourishing the brain from a vascular health perspective, but from a nutrient perspective, from a neurogenesis perspective. So all of these things are happening during your workout, and they'll translate into faster reaction time. They'll translate into fewer misses. Like how many of these things can you hit in 30 seconds?
So it could even be things like fine motor control, right? So
yes.
It sounds like what we're doing is we're taking the basic concepts of neurology, but then we're applying them in a fitness environment, in a fitness place, in a way that connects movement to medicine, right?
Exactly. Exercise is medicine.
So that's awesome. So maybe not just the cognitive aspect or memory aspect or thinking aspect or attention, but then we said fine motor control or balance might be a big issue, right?
Yeah, balance is something we look at. The ability to get up and down off the ground.
Right. That
is key for not only just activities of daily life, but it's a longevity predictor. Your ability to get up and down off the ground.
Oh, yes.
So that's one of the things that we look at. So all of this, along with a lot of conversation about goal setting, helps me figure out that bigger picture plan. Not just what your workout program looks like, but who else do you need to see? Do you need to talk to the dietitian team? Do you need to talk to Valerie, our health coach? Do you need to talk to one of our community partners, which is another thing?
Oh, yeah.
We all need that. I'm like, who on the community partner list do I need to see about this? And our community partners.
Yeah, I want to be really connected.
Yeah, we want to bring in our community, our tribe, because as many wonderful things as we can do here, we can't do everything.
So one of the things that I could see happening is someone gets a diagnosis, say Parkinson's disease, they've always enjoyed fitness, and then they suddenly feel like the gym isn't the right place for them. Exactly. They have a disease, they have a condition, they can't just go to the gym, right? Maybe they're just plain feel awkward now that they know they have this condition, or they don't necessarily feel like your standard gym, your standard fitness center is not really the right place that can attend to their needs when they have Parkinson's disease.
Exactly.
So what we want to say is, no, that could be true, but we have this very special place for you that combines all aspects of neurology with fitness. So you have Parkinson's, you have MS, you have some memory issues, you have migraines, you have fibromyalgia, you have a neuromuscular disease. Any of these things would be a very appropriate situation where, first of all, we want you to feel home. We want you to know that it's personalized. You're never going to be asked to do something that you're not prepared to do, that you're not at all comfortable doing, because this is always about small, achievable steps that people can take to gradually improve their fitness over time. And their fitness is defined not just in terms of their body, but in terms of the brain.
Exactly. And I think you hit on a very important point. And let's just be honest. A lot of fitness centers, fitness classes are focused on the already fit, right? Mm-hmm. And there's not places for people who are getting started. There are not places for people who maybe don't fit the ideal of fitness that we have out there, right? Not everybody fits into that box. In fact, most people don't fit in that box, and they don't feel comfortable walking in there. I mean, I've had people over the years, so many people like, well, is everybody going to be in better shape than me? Is everybody going to be more experienced than me? I'm like, no. I mean, everybody's coming in at different levels and different places. That's why this personalized approach is so magical, because it's for everybody. It's not for if somebody, and not to say that they wouldn't benefit if they're a competitive runner, or if they're they've been cycling forever, like Dr.
Because neuroplasticity is such a big concept even in these areas, right?
Exactly. So it could be somebody who just wants to elevate those results, but really what we've created with Charlotte Health Neurofitness is a place where people can feel comfortable. You don't have to be already super fit. This is going to be about you and your body and what you need and how we can make that brain-body connection so that you can get the most personalized plan and a team approach. You don't just get a trainer, you get a team.
So is this just a place I can walk in and work out, like show my card?
No, it's not your anytime. No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
You have to.
Not an open gym.
Not an open gym. You're always going to be working with a trainer. Okay. It's one-on-one or small group.
Small group. So what is a small group?
Okay, so small group, a lot of people think boot camp.
Okay.
Right? No, that's not what it is. Because again, it's not like I'm just going to throw up a bunch of exercises and everybody do them. Small group just means you're with 2 or 3 other people.
Okay.
But you're doing your own workout. You're doing what you need to do. You're just doing it with other people, which makes it more fun because there's a little bit of camaraderie that builds. We're all in this together. You can learn from somebody who maybe is just 2 or 3 months ahead on the journey. Maybe they've been at it a little bit longer. So it takes a little pressure off. It makes it a little more fun.
Better.
We can support each other. We've got community, which is super important to me. And I know it's super important to everybody here in the team. Community. Wow, I didn't time that. Community. Come on in, Eric.
Oh my gosh! We have a very special guest here today.
Yeah, come on in. Have a seat.
The masked fitness man.
Let's see if we can get you in here. Get you in the shot. I don't want to get really close.
Hello.
We were just talking about neurofitness. This is Eric Johnson from Fleet Feet, Springfield. And we were just talking about the Neuro Fitness Center, which I'm going to take Eric down to give him a little tour here after we're done. But we were talking about creating community, that we were talking about how important that is to have people supporting you when you're coming in for your workout in a small group. I know community's big at Fleet Feet, so we're glad you're here as one of our community partners, too.
Thank you. Yeah. Accountability is it.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, that's the other thing, too. We were talking about small group training and kind of what that is. You know, if somebody doesn't show up, like, the next week, somebody's going to be like, where were you?
Texting you right now.
Yeah, you left me here with her all alone. Where were you? Don't do that again.
Sure.
Hey, what's going on at Fleet Feet these days?
It's pretty busy. It's, outdoor stuff is a good year. It's bad for a lot of businesses, but we're fortunate to be in an industry where people have started walking because they couldn't work for a while and they just got to get outside more. Can't be inside as much. So we've been very fortunate. We have some cool new technology to help people get in
What's
the right.
What's your favorite?
Right
tell me sort of the top 2 or 3 things your technology was. What are people hot on?
So one is we have a 3D scan of the images the shape of the foot. From a 3-dimensional standpoint, so then we have some AI that helps match shoes to feet.
Oh, nice.
Pretty cool. And then there's the newest thing is a pressure mat, dynamic pressure mat that you walk across, and it digitizes your gait. So we can tell if you have a tendency to be on the lateral side of your foot. We used to look for it, but now we have objective data that can provide like objective insights into what's the best stuff for you.
Because I've just been looking at the patterns on the bottom of people's shoes. I'm like, let me see your shoes.
Yeah, there's some clues. Yep,
right.
Yep. And that's it's just cool to have the leveraging technology to do better.
And Fleet Feet has been so great about creating its own community. So you're definitely not just about selling shoes and, of course, selling the right shoes to the right person, but also creating a community for active people, for runners, for beginners and experts. Isn't that right?
Yeah, probably more the beginner than the expert, actually. There's a lot of people whose feet hurt and don't know what to do and just need that little bit extra guidance. So.
I have a confession to make. At one point in time, this is a long time ago, but I was like the top customer. I loved that store, and I bought, because they knew who's buying from them and things like that. And so I bought, it was probably transient, it's like, because you were the first person to actually buy when we opened, but that's all. No, I did, they had a lot of great stuff, and, I had kind of a shoe addiction for a while, so.
And that you were a very serious Ironman athlete for several years.
I was, and I have to tell you, I had my Ironman Canada hat, and it was sitting on my chair at my desk at home. I was like, I'm going to bring that in and I'm going to wear it for today's show. And I did forget it. Yeah. But Eric and I go back many, many years, and we completed our first Ironman in Penticton, Canada. It was like 2011 or so. Yep. Seems like a long time ago, but really you can blink and 9 years go by. So
absolutely
incredible.
Well, let's be honest, lately, like last October seems like a lifetime ago. I mean, let's be honest here. And your running group is great. First of all, I'm the lone person out. Like, I've never done a marathon. I've never done an Iron Man, woman, whatever. But your groups are great for those beginners. I had the pleasure of actually talking to the group last week as they were warming up, and they're all getting ready, or not all of them, but a lot of them are getting ready for the Bass Pro Marathon this weekend. That's going on. I'm curious. I mean, anybody in the comments, give a shout out if you're doing that this weekend, but is everybody really pumped? Everybody excited?
Absolutely. People are just excited to have a chance to do a race because there's just been a tough year. So not all those people are doing the full. Like some of them a lot of them are doing the half, and a lot of them are doing the 5K. You're a runner whether you're running 1 mile or 26 miles. So
Absolutely.
It's just getting out the door and getting it done.
I did that race several years ago, and I raced all around the country. And I have to say that was really one of the most lovely courses. It was fun. It was pretty. It wasn't, too tough. We weren't doing a lot of hill climbing and things like that. There was music. It was kind of a mini rock and roll marathon. Yeah. Like, there was music along the way. It was super fun. It's a really, really great event. And I know that every year with the leadership of people like Melissa Bondi, it just gets better and better.
Yeah. Bass Pro, another great community partner for just leading fitness.
Yeah. 100%. Super grateful for them. So let's say I walk into your store and I'm totally new. Like I've got it in my mind. I'm ready for change. Fitness is on the top of my mind, but I don't even know where to start. Can you walk me through what we're going to do?
Yeah, what a visit. Yeah.
Yeah.
You always sit down and just got to find out a little bit about what the person, what do you like to do? Do you hurt? What have you been wearing? Do you work on a hard floor all day and you're not even running? You just need something because your feet hurt. Or are you wanting to start walking or start trail running or whatever? So there's a little bit of an interview, and then we'll do the scans. So we'll do that standing scan to get the shape of your foot and the size of your feet, because typically the feet are not the same size. Maybe 1 out of every 40 scans I see, the foot length is the same on left and right.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And then arches are often different. The forefoot width, the heel width, all that plays into a part because shoes are shaped differently. Some have a wider toe box, right? And some are narrower. So that helps match up the right shoe to the foot. And then we'll do that walking scan. And that'll tell us, again, how you walk. And they can understand if we need a softer type shoe or maybe a more supportive and kind of rigid type shoe.
And I know, like, when I was buying a lot of different running shoes, I was kind of a barefoot runner for a while, either literally wearing the Vibram 5 Fingers,
the toe shoes,
the toe shoes, and they're still super fun. I think I especially like doing that out on the trails, things like that. It just seems sort of primal to run in them out on the trails. But I definitely liked more minimalist shoes. I liked kind of what we call a low heel to toe differential. I mean, it was a fairly flat shoe, so your heel wasn't up super high, because I was more of a midfoot, forefoot, runner at the time, at least. So what's really popular now? I mean, I know that the Hokas came out, at my peak running years. And I know they still make Hokas, and then there have been some other shoe companies who kind of followed those super thick shoes, thick-soled shoes. So that's really the complete opposite in a way from the barefoot running shoe. So what's really in these days? What are people liking?
So if we look back, say 10 or 20 years ago, there were not very many options in shoe stores. They were typically that firmer style shoe or the soft shoe or a racing shoe. And with the advent of the minimalist kind of movement in the early 2000s, late 90s, we started getting the flatter, lighter shoes. And then the pendulum has swung. So from that minimal kind of towards the maximal, those minimal shoes are still very appropriate for a lot of people. Maximalist shoes, like a Hoka, is very thick cushioned, are very appropriate for a lot of people. So what we've arrived at nowadays is we have so many more tools in our toolbox to get the person in the type of shoe that they need.
Does it make a difference as far as like injury is concerned?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
The research, it's tough to do really good RCT, randomized controlled research with shoes and injuries, as people don't really comply. It's just very tough. But the research kind of leads us to understand that if you have a lot of Achilles problems and calf problems and foot problems, we might not want to be in that more minimal shoe. We might want more protection from that, say, that Hoka type shoe. Whereas if you have a lot more shin splints, maybe knee pain, then maybe we don't want to be in those maximal shoes, and we might want to be in something a little more minimal. Whenever we change a shoe, we're not making force go away from your body. We're just shifting it to different tissues. So that minimal shoe, we're going to have a little more force on the calf and the feet, whereas on the more maximal shoes, on the more front part of the body, some of the joints.
I know that at one point, what those minimalist shoes allowed me to do is kind of very much like what I see some running coaches do with their athletes on days when they're maybe just doing some speed work and they're out at the track. Maybe that's, at around one of the Glendale High School where they have the football field, that in the center. Yeah. So what they do is they have them just take off their shoes completely, and they'll just run the 100 yards across the football field.
Yes.
And what happens is when you're just running without shoes, you run completely different. Some people do, not everybody, of course, but especially perhaps those heel strikers will then suddenly start running a little more in their forefoot, a little more in their midfoot, and then putting on those minimalist shoes helps to, once you kind of got that neuroplasticity going, that pattern going, it's easier to continue with those shoes. Whereas I think, if I understand what you're saying, if perhaps you're more of a heel striker, that you may, or maybe I hope I'm getting it right. If you're more of a back foot striker, that by getting into a little more minimalist, it will allow you to create a gait that's a bit more natural and a little more balanced, perhaps.
Especially if you've got the injuries that go along with that heel strike gait. If you're not having a lot of injuries, we get a little nervous about trying something very different.
Sure.
But if you're in a minimal shoe and you got a lot of calf and Achilles, then we want to get you in a more cushion shoe, and vice versa for that person is a heel striker and has the joints in the shoe. So.
And that was me. I mean, one of my first personal visits to Fleet Feet was I had been not in a minimalist shoe, but just certainly more minimal.
Yeah.
And ended up with some calf issues and some foot issues, and so I went and I'm like, hey, what's going on? And got me into a shoe with more rise and more lift, all the difference in the world, and was able to keep running. Without the pain and without the injury. And it's the shoes. Like Spike says, it's the shoes.
I think that also speaks to the point that if you do a fair amount of walking or running, there's some value in having a couple different things that you alternate.
Sure.
Because every different type of shoe affects your body differently. And so if you have that more minimal shoe for some days or some type of workouts, and you have that a little bit more of a normal cushion shoe or a maximum cushion shoe, you're always mixing it up. And then the stress on any one tissue has a hard time adding up.
Yeah,
that's the philosophy behind cross-training. I mean, you cross-train your feet with different shoes. If you're a runner, you want to cross-train your body. You don't want to run all the time exclusively. You want to make sure that you're doing work for your flexibility and your strength and your speed and your power with muscular training. So you're just cross-training your feet with those different kinds of shoes.
Right. So a little bit different question, and that is about apparel. Apparel is also a big issue, or not big issue, big interest, and big part of a good fitness store like yours. I know there's a lot of technical material. It's evolved, a lot of nanotechnology that's built into apparel. Yes. We certainly don't want people to think that if they don't have the latest, greatest, highest end running apparel that they can't just get out there and move their body. And so we can kind of think about, what do you generally recommend if somebody wants to start running? What kind of clothes should they wear? And then tell me, what are some of the really coolest? Maybe they're a little more pricey, but they're still fun to think about. And for the right customer, they're a great fit.
The really easy phrase to remember is cotton is rotten for exercise. Because when you exercise, you sweat a little bit. Cotton will absorb that moisture and it'll retain it. So if you're running or walking on a 90-degree day and you got a cotton shirt on, you're sweating and it's gross. Whereas if you have your nice pair of stretch polyester, lycra, spandex, capris on, or your technical polyester shirt, that's going to dry real fast.
Okay.
And in the summertime, that's going to keep you cool. In the wintertime, you don't want those cotton fabrics cooling you down.
All right.
So we want to be in this, anything that, just look at the label, and we don't want cotton on there. Even if it's partial cotton. We don't want 50-50. We want 100% some sort of synthetic, or there's wool as well. So we think of that from the standpoint of socks. We think of that from the standpoint of the bottoms that you wear and the tops that you wear.
All right. And this is such a great time of year to even start running.
Absolutely.
I actually think that the fall, even into winter, especially if you acclimate, this fall, just even through those seasons is a great time for running, because it's just, I find you can always layer up and take off a layer, but in the peak of the summer, 95 degrees and humid as we have around here, that's a tough time to start running.
There's really no such thing as too cold to run. There's nowhere in the U.S. that you cannot run year round. It's all about the right gear. So if you have a nice long sleeve base layer top, and then if it's the coldest it really gets here, the single digits, really sometimes it'll get negative, just very little. So like a long sleeve base, a thermal layer, and then just a thin windbreaker. If you get a little cold, you can unzip, take off the windbreaker, and it's a small temperature change. Whereas if you had a very thick jacket on and you do that, suddenly you're frozen. So that the light layers, like you said, that is absolutely the way to go.
And some of them are vented, so you can actually kind of unzip areas and it lets some air in. But I always think, if you start out, if you get out there, or if I get out there and I'm actually a little chilly, it's almost a good thing because you start moving and you very quickly warm up. Whereas if I start comfortable, chances are I'm going to almost be overheated.
We say dress like you're going to go walk around and it's 20 degrees warmer than it is. Because when you exercise, you'll gain that extra 20 degrees of body heat just from the muscle metabolism. So start out a little cool. You will be very comfortable the rest of the run.
Okay, so I'm going to sum up real quickly because we've got a great store, Fleet Feet, where you're going to come in, you're going to get this assessment, you're going to get the right kind of shoe for you. Then you're going to think about what kind of apparel you want for running. Cotton is rotten. Synthetics, if you want to go with some of the fancy gear, they've got it. They've got the cool jackets, the fluorescent colors probably, and the vented zippers and all that stuff, if you choose to add that in. And so the last question I have then is, how about nutrition and hydration? How does that fit in?
Yeah. So I'm not a registered dietitian, but the rules of thumb for exercising, when you go over an hour, then you really want to start having some calories with you, because especially if you're walking at a very brisk pace or running, you start to deplete those quick energy, those quick calories, and that's going to make you feel a lot better in the latter parts of that exercise session, and it's going to help you start recovering faster. Hydration, the rule of thumb is drink to thirst. Your body's pretty smart, and so if you're going longer, you want to have some sort of handheld bottle maybe, or you can do loops around your neighborhood. There's backpack style with hydration bladders. Just make sure you have your fluids.
And by and large, we used to say, if you're going to run for, say, 30 minutes or so, and you're not necessarily going super hard, you may not really, and you're hydrated to begin with, you probably don't need to worry about carrying a whole bunch of extra, water with you. And for that matter, from our Charlotte Health and Neurology perspective, I would say that is not the time for things like Gatorade or similar sugary drinks, because you're just not going to burn that many calories that you need such a hard hit of refined sugar in your system.
Absolutely.
You've got plenty of sugar in your bloodstream, sugar in your muscles in the form of glycogen. You're not going to run your tank that low. And those drinks really, unfortunately, they contribute to things like diabetes in the long run. So and we have the benefit of a couple dietitians on our staff, and in addition, Pamela is very knowledgeable about nutrition. So to be sure, if you come in and work with us or work with Eric, we can make sure that you get the nutrition guidance that goes along with good fitness. And I will say, in my own personal story, that's really why I'm here today, because got very interested in triathlon, and I knew that, having a really well-designed training plan from someone like Eric, by the way, who does training plans, was, a training plan isn't, okay, I want you to go out today and run 5K or whatever that happens to be, bike for an hour. A training plan has to do with sleep. A training plan has to do with nutrition. A training plan has to do with being able to assess your own body's level of stress and know when it's time to back off or when it's time to hit it hard and have a really good hard workout. So as I integrated all of those lifestyle pieces into my own training plan and saw huge changes in my own health, and yet would go to the clinic and, practice standard neurology where I have a sick patient, okay, make the diagnosis, based on that diagnosis, give him a drug. And, the drugs are sort of Band-Aids over a problem, but, when you put a Band-Aid over a cut, by and large, the cut's going to get better, but unfortunately in traditional medicine, the cut doesn't get better, right? People with MS still have MS, people with Parkinson's still have Parkinson's, people with migraines still have migraines. And if you stop the drugs, those problems come roaring back. But I was seeing that if I integrated these lifestyle changes with my patients the way I had integrated them into my own life, that we were actually able to alter the trajectory of people's health. And so just like the skin healing under the Band-Aid, we were able to actually get people off their MS medicines. We were able to take someone with memory problems that maybe had early evolving Alzheimer's, and instead of telling them, your life is over, go start, planning your estate and whatever and your medical power of attorney, that they were coming back and their memory scores were actually getting better, and their function and quality of life was getting better. Our patients with Parkinson's were walking better, were moving better, had better energy. Our patients with MS, similarly, fatigue is such a huge issue. It's one of the easiest, fastest things to improve when it comes to integrating functional medicine principles. So with that said, I want you guys to remember Fleet Feet Sports. Eric Johnson, owner. This is the place to go in the greater Springfield area for your running and fitness needs. Thanks so much, Eric.
Great seeing both of you.
Yeah, thanks for being here.